JonBenet Ramsey script, simplified version. There was something special about her. She was bubbly, free-spirited, and very bold. You know the type. Yoga at sunrise, health drinks in hand. She probably never saw a fancy fur coat in her life, and wouldn't want to wear one if she had. Boulder was beautiful, sure, but it was nothing like the world we came from. We were the business suit and tie people, carrying briefcases and drinking coffee. Boulder was more into going barefoot and believing in crystal healing. Then there was John Ramsey. He had this look, quiet, hard to read, the kind of look that made people stop and think, what's going on in this guy's head? He was the first one to find JonBenet. He picked her up, held her, and just like that, the entire crime scene was ruined. Any chance of keeping evidence safe was gone. And yet, weirdly enough, the police didn't really question him about it. Not like they did Patsy. Not like they did Burke, which was strange. I mean, he was the head of the house, the one in control. But somehow people looked at him like he was just this sad, harmless dad in the background. Was that all he was? A sad father caught in a nightmare? Or did he know a whole lot more than he was telling? So, who is John Ramsey, really? Well, let's go back to the beginning. JonBenet Ramsey was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. He wasn't just some rich guy with a mysterious feeling about him. He was smart, too. He went to Michigan State, got a degree in electrical engineering in 1966, then went back for a business degree in 1971. Not bad, right? He started out in the Navy, joined the Civil Engineer Corps, served 3 years in the Philippines, then stayed around for 8 more years in the reserves in Atlanta. Oh, and he's a licensed pilot, not just any pilot. He owned 2 private planes. When you have 2 planes, you're either really into flying or just really hate waiting in airport security lines. He came from a military family. His dad, James J. Ramsey, was a decorated World War II pilot. His mom was Mary Jane. Nebraska shaped his early years, and he went on to build what looked like the perfect life. Career, money, family. But of course, what things look like can fool you. And in John's case, that's the big question. Was he just the unlucky guy at the center of a national tragedy? Or was he more involved than anyone ever dared to believe? John Ramsey's personal life was definitely complicated. He got married for the first time in 1966 to a woman named Lucinda Pash. Together, they had 3 kids: Elizabeth, Melinda, and John Andrew. Things seemed fine until they weren't. They split up in 1978 after about 11 years. No big scandal that we know of, just one of those breakups where the details never really made it to the public. Fast forward 2 years. John marries Patsy Ramsey in 1980. Patsy was a former beauty queen, with a big smile and bigger personality. Together, they had Burke and their youngest, JonBenet Patricia Ramsey, who was born on August 6, 1990. That little girl with the blonde curls would later become the center of one of the most talked about mysteries in America. As a dad, John wasn't the hands-off, too busy at work type. He was present, supported his kids' activities, showed up, paid the bills. By 1996, the Ramseys were living in Boulder, Colorado, in a big, beautiful house on 15th Street. John had built himself a serious career. In 1989, he started a tech company called Advanced Product Group. It later merged with a couple other businesses and became Access Graphics. Under John's leadership as CEO, the company didn't just grow, it exploded. By 1996, Access Graphics had made over $1 billion in revenue. $1 billion. He wasn't just rolling in numbers either. He earned the title of Entrepreneur of the Year from the Boulder Chamber of Commerce that same year. His net worth by May of '96 was around $6.4 million. And just weeks before Christmas, He received a bonus of $118,000. That's the kind of money most people don't see in a decade. He saw it on top of his regular paycheck. But John wasn't just about business. Around the holidays, he and his family were known for showing up at community and church events, especially at St. John's Episcopal Church in Boulder. While there's no official list of what they attended in the days before Christmas, it's safe to say they were the kind of family that participated, smiled for photos, and gave off happy family vibes, even if behind the scenes, things weren't quite as perfect. Because we all know, money, titles, and picture-perfect homes don't always tell the full story. John wasn't just the guy running $1 million company. He also showed up as a dad, especially when it came to JonBenet's beauty pageants. Now, most of the glitter, hairspray, and tight scheduling was handled by Patsy Dot. She was the pageant queen in her day. But John, he was definitely involved. Whether it was cheering her on from the sidelines, sitting through rehearsals, or smiling proudly in the front row, he showed up. Right before Christmas, JonBenet even made an appearance at a local shopping mall in Boulder, and it's very likely John was there too. His presence at these events wasn't just for show. It was part of how he supported his kids. He may have been a CEO, but at the end of the day, he was still a dad with a camcorder and a front row seat. Beyond the pageants, John also had strong ties with Boulder's upper class. He and Patsy were part of the town's social scene, hanging out with families like the Whites and the Steins. On December 23, 1996, just 2 days before everything would change, the Ramseys attended a Christmas party at the home of their close friends, Fleet and Priscilla White. The guest list was very Boulder, very well connected. That night was a big one for the Ramseys, socially speaking. Before heading over to the White House, they'd hosted their own holiday party at their home on 15th Street. From about 5 to 8 p.m., their place was filled with 30 to 40 guests, friends, family, and kids running around in Christmas sweaters. Was even a Santa impersonator, Bill McCringles, who dropped by to add to the festive mood. The kids decorated gingerbread houses, the grown-ups hung out, and everything looked picture perfect. One moment that stood out was when Patsy gave JonBenet a gold bracelet with her name engraved on it and the date, December 25, 1996. A sweet little Christmas keepsake that now feels heartbreakingly meaningful. As if that wasn't enough on their plate, John had also been making travel plans. The Ramseys owned a vacation home in Charlevoix, Michigan, and they were planning to fly out after Christmas to spend time with John's older kids, Melinda and John Andrew, from his first marriage. Since John was a licensed pilot, he'd planned to fly the family himself. Classic Ramsey, mixing family time with a bit of luxury. All in all, the days leading up to Christmas were packed. Work, family, parties, travel plans. It was a whirlwind. On the surface, everything seemed happy and full. But as we know, that picture-perfect life would soon fall apart. So on Christmas Day, 1996, everything seemed pretty normal at the Ramsey house. You had JonBenet, their 6-year-old daughter, all dressed up in a cute black and white outfit, probably showing off a new bracelet she just got as a gift. The family had friends over, people like R.A. Brown, Priscilla White's parents, and a guy named Cliff Gaston, who was close to the family. John Ramsey, the dad, was hosting, so he was around, probably hanging out with people, but nothing really stands out about what he did that day. But then something strange happened that evening. A 911 call was made from their house around 6:48 p.m. It got cut off before anyone could talk. When the police called back, no one picked up, so they sent an officer to check it out. A family friend, Susan Stein, told the officer it was probably just a mistake. Maybe someone was trying to order medication for an elderly relative or something. It didn't seem urgent at the time, so the officer left and no report was filed. The rest of Christmas was just typical. JonBenet got a bike, the family opened presents, had dinner, just your usual holiday stuff. Later that night, John said he carried JonBenet to bed after all the excitement. There's even a theory that she might have had some pineapple that night, but nothing really confirms that, or that John was the one who gave it to her. Then came the morning of December 26th, and this is where everything changes. Around 5:30 a.m., Patsy woke up to get some coffee going. They were supposed to fly out to Charlevoix, Michigan later that day. John had his own private plane and was planning to fly the family himself. But not long after she got up, Patsy went to check on JonBenet and realized her bed was empty. Naturally, she panicked. A few minutes later, she found a handwritten ransom note on a back staircase. It was long, 3 pages, and demanded a very specific amount of money, the exact figure John had just received as a Christmas bonus. The note claimed JonBenet had been kidnapped. Patsy immediately ran to tell John, and the two of them frantically searched the house. No sign of JonBenet. They even peeked in on Burke, their son, who was still asleep. Then at 5:52 a.m., Patsy called 911. The call has been analyzed ever since. Instead of immediately saying what was wrong, Patsy started by giving their address. Now, that could just be her trying to be efficient. But some people think it sounded weird, like maybe she was following a script. When she did explain, she said, "We have a kidnapping instead of my daughter's been taken." Little things like that made people feel like she was distancing herself from what was actually happening. Throughout the call, she kept focusing on the ransom note before even mentioning her daughter was missing. That felt off too, like the note was more important than the child. And instead of saying my daughter, she kept using our daughter or we, which made her sound oddly detached. People also noticed she said, "please," over and over, which, while polite, struck some as forced, almost like she was trying too hard to sound upset. Even more concerning, she never asked the dispatcher things like, "What should I do?" or "How do I get her back?" She didn't even mention the note's warning not to call the police, which would have been a huge source of fear for any parent. After she hung up, the call line stayed open a few more seconds. You can actually hear voices in the background. One sounds like John saying, "We're not speaking to you." And another, probably Patsy, saying again and again, "What did you do?" Some think they were talking to Burke, which is unsettling since they claimed he was asleep through everything. So, was the call real, or was it something else? That's still a big question. Anyway, once the police got there, John seemed cooperative at first. He gave them the ransom note, answered some questions, and even called friends like Fleet and Priscilla White to come over and support them. The problem was that those friends came into the house before it was secured as a crime scene. Some people even cleaned the kitchen or moved things around, which made investigators really suspicious. Why let people in when the note specifically said not to contact anyone? Still, it might have just been a reaction to stress. People don't always think clearly in moments like that. But here's the part that really raised eyebrows. All morning, the police were searching, but they didn't fully check the basement. Then around 1 p.m., the lead detective asked John and Fleet to do one more walkthrough. They went straight to a back room in the basement, a storage area for Christmas stuff. That's where John found JonBenet's body. She was lying on the floor, under a white blanket with duct tape on her mouth and a garrote around her neck. At that moment, John picked her up and brought her upstairs, sobbing and screaming. He laid her down near the Christmas tree. That action, moving the body, ended up being a huge issue. It disrupted any potential evidence, fingerprints, positioning, DNA, and the way he interacted with the detective afterward made her feel like something wasn't right. She later said. There was a silent look between them that gave her chills. Since then, the case has been wrapped in mystery and suspicion. The way the call was handled, the way the scene was treated, and the way people acted, all of it has led to years of speculation, but no real closure to this day. We still don't really know what happened to JonBenet Ramsey. Even the FBI said it was unusually long. Most ransom notes are short and to the point. This one read more like a performance. Behavioral analysts even picked up on a motherly tone, like whoever wrote it knew the family well. Suspicion naturally fell on Patsy handwriting. Analysis didn't confirm she wrote it, but it didn't rule her out either. John and Burke, their son, were cleared. But the fact that the note was written inside the house, and that no kidnapper ever followed up with a call or contact, it made it all feel staged, like someone might have written it to cover up something much darker. But others argued, what if an intruder had snuck in, waited for the right time, and took their sweet time writing that note? What if they knew exactly what they were doing? Then there's JonBenet herself, just 6 years old, found dead in their basement later that day. The autopsy showed she had been strangled with a homemade garrote crafted from part of a broken paintbrush. That belonged to Patsy. Her skull was also fractured. There were signs of sexual trauma, too, though no semen was found. Her body had been carefully placed, partially covered with a white blanket. It wasn't just dumped somewhere. It was arranged. Some say that shows guilt. Others say it shows familiarity. But the partial covering experts say that's not how a parent usually reacts. It's more common when a killer feels a mix of shame and detachment. Then there's the pineapple. JonBenet had pineapple in her stomach, something she must have eaten between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. But both John and Patsy said she hadn't eaten anything that night. A bowl of pineapple was found in the kitchen, and Burke's fingerprints were on it. No one could say for sure when those prints were left, but it added yet another strange layer. Was she awake that night eating with her brother? Did something happen then? Even John's reaction that day, when he found her, when he carried her upstairs, got people talking. Some investigators felt he disturbed the scene, maybe even intentionally. But again, picture it. A father finds his daughter dead, alone in a basement. Can you really blame him for losing it? What makes this case even more confusing is that while so much points to someone inside the house, there's also a lot that supports the idea of an outsider breaking in. Let's talk about the DNA. Unidentified male DNA was found in multiple places, on JonBenet's underwear, her leggings, even under her fingernails. It didn't match John, Burke, or Patsy. It also didn't match anyone in the FBI's criminal database. That was a huge deal. In fact, in 2008, the district attorney cleared the family publicly because of it. Some experts still debated that move, wondering if the DNA could have been from the clothing manufacturer, but others argued that theory didn't hold water. The samples were complex and might have even come from more than one person. John later pushed for advanced genealogical testing in 2024, hoping maybe, just maybe, this mystery could finally be solved through science. Still, every answer just led to more questions. You know what still gives people chills? A moment, John Ramsey walked down to the basement and found his daughter's body. It's been nearly 30 years, but that moment, how it happened, where it happened, still feels strange. Because here's the thing. John didn't just go looking through the house at random. He headed straight for the basement. Not just the basement either, but a little hidden room in the far corner. It was dark, quiet, and barely used, and it's where JonBenet was. Some people found that a little too convenient. A few experts, especially in the CBS documentary, wondered if he already knew where to find her. They even questioned if the whole search was just for show. But let's pause there for a second. Because when John came upstairs holding her body, sobbing, panicked. What you see isn't a man playing a part. You see a broken father. His daughter was gone. And whatever you believe, that grief, it looked very, very real. Still, it's hard not to wonder, was that moment pure instinct or something more? Now everything in this case feels tangled. But the ransom note, that's where things start to get really weird. First of all, it was written inside the house, 3 pages long. Who takes time to write a novel during a kidnapping? All of it felt off. When the police first arrived, they assumed it was a kidnapping. That's what the note said, after all. So, they treated it like one, which meant the house wasn't locked down. People walked through it. Friends were invited over. Evidence got touched, moved, maybe even lost. And when John later found JonBenet in the basement and carried her upstairs, he unknowingly moved the body, possibly destroying critical evidence. But again, was that calculated? Or was that a dad who had just found his little girl and didn't know what else to do? There were other strange details, too. A flashlight on the counter, possibly the weapon used to strike her, but it had no fingerprints, no blood, no DNA. A rope found in a guest room. No one in the family recognized it. A boot print. In the basement, it didn't belong to anyone living in the house. Even a pubic hair on the blanket. Also not a match for anyone in the family. Then there's the DNA. This is the one thing that keeps hope alive. Male DNA under JonBenet's nails, on her underwear, and her leggings. And it didn't match John or Burke, or anyone in the FBI system, in 2008. That DNA was enough for the district attorney to publicly clear the entire family. They said, "This came from someone else. We believe you." But not everyone agreed. Some thought the DNA could have been from the factory that made the clothes. Others believed it belonged to the real killer. In 2024, John pushed for new genealogical testing, hoping that maybe, just maybe, DNA could do what detectives never could, give his daughter justice. Still, for every answer in this case, 5 more questions appear. A broken basement window? Was it the intruder's entry point? Or just a red herring? Unusual marks on her body? Were they stun gun wounds or something else? And that 911 call? Patsy sounded frantic, terrified. But when the call ended, some audio experts later claimed there were faint voices still audible. One of them, maybe even Burke, despite the family saying he was asleep. Was that a technical glitch? Or did it mean someone was lying? At the center of all this is John Ramsey. His actions, his grief, his choices. He found the body. The note mentioned his bonus. He moved her. And yet, none of the physical evidence ever tied back to him. That's what makes this case so haunting. Every clue points in 2 directions. Every person feels both innocent and suspicious at the same time. And no matter how many years pass, JonBenet's story still rings through her family, through investigators, and through all of us still searching for answers. Because for everything we think we know, the truth is, this case remains just out of reach.